Hi, everyone. A massive warm welcome to today's Friday Roundup, the episode where we recap the big week in crypto and provide some insight and some context to some of the big news items, because sometimes the headlines can be a little bit misleading, especially with crypto. There's a lot of clickbait, and I'd like to dive into some of them and give you some of the insight from our point of view as well as the industry point of view. So let's dive straight in, because we had potentially some of the biggest news of the year happened, and it's flying under the radar because it has not impacted the markets really whatsoever. And you tend to find that with, especially in bear markets, when you have a period of, let's just say, boring periods where not much news is happening. You even get good news or amazing news that comes out of nowhere. It still doesn't move the market. So it's not uncommon, but I just cannot understate how big this news is. Blackrock, the largest asset manager on the planet, is now facilitating Bitcoin trading for institutional clients via Coinbase. And I've tweeted this out. This is really, really big news. It is huge, fundamental, and structural news. Now, Blackrock, just to highlight how big they are, they have $10 trillion under management. So Fidelity was the last big asset institution that has come into crypto. They're massive Bitcoin bulls and whatnot. You know, they have multiple trillions under management. But BlackRock, they have the name, they have the reputation, and they have the power behind them to lobby regulators and Wall Street. This is really, really big news. And they have some of the biggest clients in the world, and they all want access to Bitcoin and crypto. The only reason these big funds and companies are getting into crypto is because their clients are banging on the doors. They're calling their managers, they're calling whoever's in charge of their money, and they're saying, I want exposure to X, Y, and Z because my kids are demanding it, or I'm really enjoying my research. I can see this could be the future. I want to allocate a small percentage of my portfolio to this macro asset class. And that is exactly what is happening. And I think this is a really big vote of confidence for Coinbase. There's been a lot of FUD about Coinbase recently. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Coinbase as a retail exchange or platform. It just goes down way too much. It's not very user-friendly, has a few issues around how it's run, all that. However, you have to take into account that Coinbase is the funnel where every single big company and institution moves through to buy institutional size crypto. So Ethereum, Bitcoin, it's where they go to buy those big amounts of the asset. So Coinbase has that pretty much locked away in the market. And if they have that side of things, you know, locked down, the retail side of things doesn't really matter because the big money is in the institutional side as they all come through and it becomes more trusted. So Coinbase has that locked down. But this is just massive news in my opinion. Also, the Wall Street Journal did a bit of a write-up on it. And there you go. So Coinbase stock jumps after announcing the Bitcoin partnership with BlackRock. Again, huge news for the company that's been in a lot of the news for negative reasons lately, and it needed a real shot in the arm, and this is it. This really helps it. So yeah, really, really positive news that BlackRock's moving in. Now, they have a bit of a nefarious reputation, connections to lobbyists and the government and whatnot, but yeah, this is just, if you want this space to grow into the tens of trillions, you need these big companies, these big institutions to come in and really assert, will bring in the capital, I should say. Hopefully not assert too much dominance, but I mean, a lot of these companies, they see that this could be the future and they're just positioning. So that's all it is. Okay, this was big news in my eyes as well. It just highlights the adoption that's happening around the world, not just in El Salvador, but in other places that may not be front of mind. And for me, that is Africa, absolutely Africa. So we're seeing record investment numbers in terms of VC partnerships and project investments. Now, there is a bit of a side of that which could be a little bit nefarious because regulation in Africa is quite low. So there's a lot of projects getting a lot of funding. There could be a lot of scams, but in any case, there is a tremendous amount of investment moving into Africa. There's also a large angle where a lot of these countries in Africa are facing double-digit inflation. Governments are just running up huge debts and deficits, printing as much money as possible until their currencies go belly up. And the people who get hurt are just the general populace. So they're looking for a way out, and what better way is to go onto your smartphone, which smartphone penetration in Africa is really quite high, but bank account bank account numbers. It's very hard for a lot of people in rural areas, even in cities, to actually get a bank account in Africa. There's lots of checks and balances they have to go through to actually get it. It's very, very difficult. So crypto allows you to skip all that. They skip over that traditional financial system, that archaic architecture, and just move straight into this current digital age, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, Ryan Dintz, he had a great post here just highlighting an excerpt from the article. The lack of common legacy financial systems and an enormous population, primarily unbanked, all contribute to the popularity and growth of cryptocurrencies on the continent. So you've got the twofold hit there. You've got people who want to escape double-digit inflation by moving into something like a Bitcoin, but predominantly, and I'm going to emphasize this, stable coins. It allows them to get access to US dollars very easily and very quickly. Ordinarily, they'd never be able to get their hands on US dollars through a bank because they can't get a bank. So that is a huge, huge positive. And also it allows them to actually have a bank account on their phone, which is super, super fast and easy. So escaping inflation and getting a savings mechanism they can use. This is the primary, driver for Bitcoin adoption in second and third world countries in South America and also Africa. It's really, really heartwarming to see that the grassroots of adoption of cryptocurrencies isn't always coming from, the big end of town, Wall Street, the US, Asia. It's also coming from impoverished areas which need an escape hatch. So it's showing you that it is useful and has a utility in this way. And just to emphasize that as well, I'll just go over quick figures of the VC investment. So during the first half of 2022, African blockchain companies attracted $304 million in funding, almost triple that received across 2021. So that is a big, big move. And you can just see it's going on about who the companies moving in, increased adoption in Africa. Bitcoin is getting adopted at such a huge rate. But again, I want to emphasize that stable coins are probably the more useful vehicle right now in those nations with double-digit inflation, because the volatility of Bitcoin is still quite high. So they need a stable currency, but they are using crypto to onboard into the ecosystem, which is, I think, is fantastic. So also, if you go to Google Trends, just to have a quick look at Google searches, just to emphasize maybe retail adoption, how people can actually get access to this sort of thing. They're interested in it. I think it's a really, really useful tool that we also use with our clients, and recommend you do this in your research to see what is being researched and where. So Bitcoin across the board, no surprise here, it is really being searched hard in El Salvador. The adoption there is skyrocketing. People want to know more about it and get involved. But they're number 2. Look at that, Nigeria. So that is one of the main, worldwide in terms of Bitcoin searches in the past 12 months. Nigeria is number 2. We'll know Nigeria is in Africa. Then you've got Netherlands, Austria, and Switzerland. So interesting that the center of Europe is beginning to get very, very interested in Bitcoin and crypto. And I thought I'd just go over to crypto as well and just have a search in the last 90 days on where a lot of that interest is coming from. It is all from Africa, Benin, can't even say that, Cameroon, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria. So all in the African area, the searches for crypto are skyrocketing. So the interest is enormous in these areas. And I think it's, again, driven a lot by, 1, Bitcoin savings account, and 2, get their hands on stable coins to do remittances, transactions, and also save as well. I think it just cannot be understated how important and wonderful crypto is for those parts of the world. All right, let's move on to a couple more news pieces. So Senator Warren, she is hugely anti-crypto. She comes out with some absolute doozies. But she proposes reducing Wall Street's involvement in crypto. Look, she's been a champion of reducing Wall Street's influence on the little guy for a long time, which I think is really good. But her views on crypto can be a little bit misguided. You might disagree with me there, but so far that's my take on it. So Warren's letter urges the OCC, so the Office of the Controller of the Currency, to collaborate with Fed and FDIC to develop an alternative cryptocurrency approach that adequately protects consumers and the safety and soundness of the banking system. All that sounds fantastic, but she's hitched her wagon to the anti-crypto lobby, and they are lobbying Congress and the Senate hard. And I brought this up because I want to highlight that after things like Terra Luna and Celsius and all that, the regulators are coming hard. And I think it is going to be a really good positive for this space in the mid to long term. But in the short term, we're experiencing it in a rather volatile bear market period. So it can be a little bit negative. You can get a little bit caught up in that doomsday hysteria, when in fact, this is actually a very positive thing, reducing the bad actors in the space, providing protection to investors, providing a lot of confidence to institutional investors as well as retail. It's just such a good thing for this space to mature and grow. So when you see these headlines, you can get a little bit put off and whatnot. But I would also emphasize that the pro-crypto lobby is enormous. The power of pro-crypto lobby in Washington right now is enormous. And the GOP, so the Republicans, the rain's quite loud here, the GOP, the Republicans are quite pro-crypto. They're very pro-Bitcoin. So they have the lock on the Senate. They also likely will sweep Congress, and they may take the presidency in a couple of years. So if you expand out onto the macro and the big lens, crypto's in very good hands. And there's also a bill coming up from Senator Loomis, who is championing Bitcoin as a stable reserve asset people can invest in. And she wants to classify it as a commodity, and it's got a lot of bipartisan support. So just keep that on your radar. But I wanted to highlight how regulators are having an outsized impact right now on this space. So we spoke about El Salvador a little while ago in terms of Google searches, and this is a really interesting topic to talk about as well, because what they've done by enabling Bitcoin as legal tender in the country, providing an alternative to US dollars and any other currencies, it is actually driving something that might have been a bit unexpected at the beginning, and that's Bitcoin tourism, a new term that's been coined, Bitcoin tourism, because the statistics are showing that tourists are flocking to El Salvador despite the Bitcoin bear market. And this is really, really interesting, because El Salvador adopting it is actually seeing that inflow of Bitcoin has come to the country. It's seeing an inflow of companies come in with crypto ties and Bitcoin ties, and big investors coming in looking to buy property, looking to invest in the local economy, providing a really good a buzz around the place and injecting a lot of money into an economy that previously no one really cared about. And it was a pretty violent place. It's still, crime-wise, it's still pretty bad, but trying to improve things. This will bring a lot of improvement to El Salvador, which is interesting. And I've seen a lot of people going out for tours to see the volcano where they've set up the Bitcoin mining, El Zonte, as well as the Bitcoin beach, which is very, very popular. But I just wanted to highlight here. So contrary to reports from the Wall Street Journal that El Salvador's bet on Bitcoin to attract tourists hasn't worked, visits for the first half of this year almost outpaced the total visits in 2019. 1.1 million people visited the country in 6 months compared to last year's total of 1.2 million. Now, a bit of a caveat there as well, just to be totally objective, COVID was obviously through that era, so there would have been a significant drop in tourism anyway across the board. So these numbers do look impressive, but we do have to account that figures will look more impressive because obviously there's just more people going than there were over those few years in between. However, those figures still look really, really good, no matter how you look at it. So just fantastic. You see a lot of people going there just for the sake of Bitcoin and being there and being a part of it. And yeah, I think it's a really positive thing. And this could be seen as that double whammy effect or triple whammy effect of other smaller nations doing the same thing. Countries in Africa, adopt Bitcoin, encourage investment, bring a lot of these international tourists who want to see what's going on and how Bitcoin is interacting with the economy. I think it's fantastic. Okay, and just quickly as well, so Solana was in the news this week for a large hack that happened, and it was a bit ambiguous about how it happened, and not a lot of people had a lot of information on it. And as always, with a lot of hype and a lot of this news, it isn't always as it seems. Now, Solana, it's a real tough one because it's a super loved and used blockchain. However, it does suffer a outsized amount of hacks and say wallets that get compromised or whatnot. And it is a risk in that side of things, just for the sheer amount of times this does keep happening. So I would caution you, this is absolutely what you want to look at in your fundamental research when you're looking to invest in these cryptos. This is stuff you have to really look into. And also this highlights as well how important and just imperative it is to take your security seriously. It is about 12 12 episodes in our security and on-chain module emphasizes how important we take security and how important it is to keep your keys offline and off software wallets, because this is what looks like to have happened. The hack happened through the Slope wallet, which was a software wallet, and a lot of people's private keys were just released into the public atmosphere and then taken, and people were just emptying wallets left, right, and center that had crypto on it. So it also had a snowball effect through other software wallets called Phantom as well. Look, it's just crazy. But at the end of the day, if you have your keys on your hardware wallet secure and offline, this does not affect you whatsoever. You can still interact with the Solana blockchain and be totally okay with what's going on, and be reasonably confident that your private keys are totally secure if they're off chain. But with this sort of stuff, it just, again, emphasizes that you just don't want to get lazy. If you're interacting a lot with NFTs and applications and protocols, you might keep some of your Solana or your assets on a software wallet for ease and convenience. Do not fall into that trap. You can do it for a short term, but you have to understand the risk of what happens if you keep it there and it gets hacked and it's gone forever. So just be aware of that. Again, it's something we cover religiously in our course, and I can't emphasize that enough. All right, I wanted to get onto a really nice bit of news before we log off here today. So this is for our existing clients. So if you weren't aware, graduates of our course move into a graduates group where everyone interacts with one another, post charts, post news, questions, and all that. And the team as well helps answer some of those questions. But by and large, we have a great community. So if you're looking to become a client of ours, this is what you have to look forward to. Not only do you get the educational side of things, but you also get ongoing support from previous graduates. Some of them are masterminds or ex-masterminds. So that's our advanced course. They're also in there as well and provide excellent feedback and insight, again, as well as the team jumping in as well. And we also like to reward clients for coming on and posting, interacting, and helping out others. And I wanted to just congratulate Murat Abazi for a tremendous contribution into the group in the month of July. So congratulations. We're going to give you 3 months free access to our monthly newsletter. So if you weren't aware, that is $49 a month. So you get 3 months free. So thank you, Murat, and congratulations on taking action and just stepping up, asking those questions. And I loved your questions too, because they were very macro related. I've just got one here. Does anyone know how much the farmer situation around the world? There's not much coverage. Apparently there's a lot going on in Europe, Sri Lanka. I love the way you think, because this affects financial markets. And I really enjoy diving into the macro and providing that perspective, because this is a macro asset class now. We are totally hooked into what's happening in the global financial system and what's happening in traditional markets. So just for that, thank you very much, and congrats on doing those posts. It had a lot of interaction and it generated a lot of interest. So congrats again, Murat. Everyone, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Another Friday Roundup finished. We'll catch up again on Monday for our Monday market update. Let's hope we see a bit of a bounce in the markets and remain above that 200-week moving average. So have a wonderful day. Bye.